This 2017 holiday season is already kicked off. If you're like most people, you may be thinking ahead and pseudo-budgeting the expenses this season brings. From food to presents and money for travel, the average American spends significantly more starting right before Thanksgiving. The National Retail Federation reports that 164 million Americans, that's 69% of all Americans, plan to shop. And more relevant to this article, the NRF says that consumers say they will spend an average of $967 this year. If you have $1,000, well, that's great. But if you don't, you'll likely have to find a way to raise the funds to pay for those plans you're making. According to Credit.com, if you borrow $1,000 on your credit card this holiday season and only pay the minimum payment at a 22% APR, you'll pay an extra $597 in the long run and pay off the debt in 2022. That's $1,597 total and a lot of time. Of course, if you pay it off faster, you'll pay less interest. And Americans with good credit, carrying credit cards with a much lower APR, will likely reach for their MasterCard, Amex, and Visa to cover their planned holiday expenses. A large majority of Americans, however, may not have access to low-interest credit cards to borrow the money they need this holiday season. And if you find yourself in this category, then you're likely being bombarded by ads in your mailbox or inbox from alternative lenders. The terms of these loans is something to consider seriously and sometimes can be outrageous and scary. Here's why. Interest rates range from 100% to 300% APR, and you have to provide your bank account and income information. And one of the scarier things is that these companies are being run by other companies whose identity is sometimes skillfully hidden from the public. And here's a hint: slot machines. A real alternative this holiday season is your local pawn shop. Get a pawn loan for the merchandise you own and repay the loan during tax season. In California, for example, interest rates on loans are 3% per month for loans less than $2,500, and many states offer pawn loan interest rates at competitive rates to those of payday lenders, car title lenders, and high-interest personal loans from these alternative lenders. That's a $1,000 loan that will roughly cost you $180 to $200, and you get 6 months to pay back. Now that's alternative lending. Why not borrow money at competitive rates? There's no credit check or negative effect on your credit or FICO score. You don't need an active bank account, and repayment schedules are easy to understand. Pawn shops operate transparently because they're required to report their interest and fees clearly on their contracts for your review before signing to accept the pawn loan. They're also required to keep your personal information and merchandise safe, so you can trust the contract you sign will be the definitive result. You pay back your loan and you get your merchandise back. Millions of Americans who use pawn shops for cash loans use pawn shops and repay their pawn loans during tax season. This perhaps could be your strategy, but you can always repay the loan back quicker like you can with traditional credit cards, and the sooner you repay, the less interest you pay. A collateral-based loan is just that. The loan is guaranteed in a sense by the merchandise you leave in exchange for the cash loan. And pawn shops should accept almost anything of value that can cover the risk of you not repaying the loan with interest. Now here's a few tips. The brand of your merchandise does matter, but pawn shops will likely value your collateral against what they could sell it for today and loan you 25 to 50% of what your item is worth on the open market. You'll need a valid ID and something of value, but that's usually it. And if you're an active duty or dependent of an active duty member of the military, some pawn shops offer MLA loans capped at a 36% annual interest rate, including all fees. Don't let this holiday season planning come to a halt if you don't have access to credit cards. Stay away from high-interest personal loans and consider other lending options like those offered at a pawn shop. Whatever you choose, please review the interest charges and do the math to know if you can repay the loan or not. Finally, another option is to consider selling the merchandise you already have. Apps like OfferUp and websites like Craigslist could help you post your existing merchandise up for sale. You'll have to answer emails and/or phone calls to manage your listings and negotiate the price you're willing to let your item go for. And this could take minutes or days depending on if you find the right buyer. You'll have to meet a stranger to make the sale, so make sure you agree on a well-lit public location, preferably during the day. You should also know that pawn shops buy merchandise too, so if getting a pawn loan against your merchandise sounds unreasonable, or you don't wish to deal with some of the hassles associated with selling your stuff online, then a pawn shop is a good and fast option to convert what you have now into cash this holiday season. Pawn shops generally offer a little more than what they'll offer you for a pawn loan to buy your merchandise, roughly 40 to 60% of your item's value. The amazing thing is that you won't have to hassle with strangers because the exchange will happen in a licensed place of business, and pawn shops all have security cameras and take customer service seriously to better serve their clientele, and you get a receipt. Don't get trapped this holiday season with high-interest credit cards or personal loans. Visit your local pawn shop and ask for more information about how pawn loans work and what they'll cost you. Of course, not spending is a frugal option, but the idea is that if you plan on borrowing money to get by this holiday season, consider all your options, including pawn shops. Before you sell or leave something as collateral at a pawn shop this holiday season, make sure you get an instant pawn quote at pawnoffer.com. Thanks.